Hi guys, my name is Trinity, and if you are here to talk about books. Today I have my November-December wrap-up. There is a reason that I am doing them together, and that is because my December, I spent a lot of it either sick, burnt out, just there's a whole lot of stuff that happened in December, and I absolutely just was done with a lot of things that were putting a lot of pressure on me. That did include YouTube, even though YouTube is a good kind of pressure. It's a pressure I enjoy. It was just another added thing to my list that I really didn't want to do in December. And so I gave myself a little bit of a mental break. Now, for the month of November, I attempted 12 books and DNF'd 4. So that means that I completed 8, DNF'd 4, and then for the month of December, I only read 2 books. So while this seems like a very weird thing for me to do because I read so much in a month, it's actually going to even out to what I typically read in a month anyway. For the month of November, I read 5,080 pages, and then for the month of December, I read 302. Okay, so the first book that I read in November was actually the Patreon pick for my Patreon, and oh my goodness. Okay, so it was Legacy of Ash by Matthew Ward. I no longer have the book, so I'll put an image of it up, but I loved this book at first. I really enjoyed the writing. I really enjoyed the characters. The atmosphere was great. And then it fell into nothing happening. And I was 300 pages into it and there was really nothing happening. So I got really, really bored. Now, it also did something that I really hate. Especially in fantasy, I really hate when there's a hard shift in character POV within a chapter and it's not blatantly obvious that we have changed POVs. Like, I want my POVs in a chapter. Give me a chapter from this POV, give me a chapter from this POV, but don't like switch it in the middle of the chapter. I hate that. I really, really hate that. And that got tedious. So while I do think it's a really good book, it's just not the book for me. Also, my allergies are still kind of acting up. I still have a lingering leftover from my sinus infection. So if you hear some of that just hanging around, that's why. The next book I read would be In a Garden Burning Gold. To tell you how much I enjoyed this book, I remember nothing about it. Absolutely nothing about it. So I was trying to come up with what to say about this book because it was a 3-star. But the only thing I can tell you is that I remember nothing about it. I actually pulled up the Goodreads synopsis of this book to like kind of trigger my memory. Nothing. Nothing is hitting. But it says, twins imbued with incredible magic and near immortality will do anything to keep their family safe, even if it tears the siblings apart. The first of a mythic epic fantasy from New York Times bestselling author of The Wild Girls. So yeah, no, I absolutely remember nothing about this book. I read the whole thing. I didn't DNF it. And I know that this has to do with political machinations and all sorts of stuff like that, but it's left my brain completely. Next would be The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher, and I did enjoy this one. Now, I think I actually had this on a 5-star prediction list, but it didn't quite hit 5 stars. It was a 4-star read for me. I really love T. Kingfisher's mix of horror and humor. It works really well for me. I enjoy the snarkiness that the characters usually have, and I really enjoy T. Kingfisher's writing. It's very atmospheric, and this one had a few twists that I found to be quite intriguing, and it definitely deals with the fae, or fae-type creatures. There's a girl who goes to her grandmother's house after she's passed away to help clean out the house and get it ready to sell. Well, in doing so, she stumbles across some letters by her step-grandfather, and she always kind of thought the man was a little crazy, and then she finds his notes that he leaves behind, and she's like, yeah, dude, this dude is crazy, totally crazy. And then things start happening to her that her grandfather talked about. And so I find it absolutely intriguing to follow her journey and figure out what all of these things actually are. And it gets kind of scary. And I can give T. Kingfisher props for when the horror hits, it hits. But it wasn't like the whole book was scary. It was just the buildup that we had leading to the main horror of the story was pretty dang good, pretty well laid out for us. Next, I read Locklands, the final book in the Founders Trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett. This one was also slightly disappointing, and I can only say that because it's the final book of a series, it drug in a few places. Now, was it bad? No, it was still 4 stars for me, but having Foundryside being a 5-star, Shorefall being a epic 5-star, and then having the ending that the series had, I wasn't really impressed, but it was still good. It was still good, and there was a lot going on in the final book that it kind of slowed the pacing down, and then the way it ended, I felt was a little of a cop-out, but I don't know. It kind of left me wanting something different. Like I wish the story would have gone in a little bit different way. And there's a relationship that you're rooting for the whole time, this whole series. And the way it ended was really weird. That's all I can say. Like the way that the 2 girls, anyway, I don't want to spoil anything, but I do still think that the Founders Trilogy is absolutely fantastic. It's just not my favorite ending to a series. Next, I read A History of Wild Places by Shea Earnshaw. Another disappointment and another 3-star. So I went into this expecting a very M. Night Shyamalan type of story, and from what I heard, it was going to be a very M. Night Shyamalan type of story. Shea Earnshaw is not M. Night Shyamalan and couldn't pull it off quite as well. And so all of the twists and turns I saw coming, and the fact that we end up, her writing is very atmospheric, it's very pretty, and so I don't think the writing itself is bad. I do think that the twists could have been executed a lot better. I think that if she hadn't dropped such heavy-handed hints in the beginning, we might have seen the twists as twists and not just information given, but I really was not impressed with this one either. Next, I read The Deep by Alma Katsu, and let me tell you, this was another 5-star prediction for me, but I'm gonna give it 4 stars. And the reason for that is, again, there are places within the story that it slows down severely. And when it does, I kind of got a little bored. Now, this does read more like a historical fiction. It reads more that way than a horror. I didn't mind that at all. And I really, really liked Alma Katsu's writing, and I really liked the fact that this read like a gothic novel on the sea. So that really intrigued me. The 4-star, like I said, it's from the fact that the pacing of the book is not great. Like it picks up and slows down quite often. But again, it was the 5-star that turned into a 5-star prediction that was a 4-star, and I'm not all that disappointed. Next would have to be one of my favorites of the year, and that would be The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I loved this book. Silvia Moreno Garcia, she is either a 5-star read for me or a complete flop. And I just love her writing. Her writing is so good. And this story is highly, highly captivating. I really liked that while we follow the daughter of Dr. Moreau, we still get to see the island and all of the things that really make us love the original story and what all is going on, how everyone lives. And I read the Athena Club as well, and Catherine just happens to be one of my favorite characters from that series. And so just having the Daughter of Dr. Moreau in a different vein, in a more adult vein, I thought was really great and enjoyed the heck out of it. Like I said, probably one of my favorite books that I read this year. Next would be Fate of the Fallen by Kel Cade, and guess what? Guess what? I didn't hate it. I actually don't get where the hate for this book comes from. I was really intrigued to find out whether I would love it or hate it because it's very divisive. Now, I get why people don't like it. I get why people do like it. It has an ending that just, why did we stop there? Like, if you have read Rebecca Roanhorse's young adult series, I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. Her first book just ends, and this one just ends. And you're like, okay, well, weird place to end, but I guess. But I did like the fact that the main character carries around the head of the hero and is not the hero, but has to try and be the hero that his friend was. I thought it was really cool. I enjoyed it. Now, did I give it 5 stars? No, I gave it 3.5. But I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. So the next 4 will be DNFs for me. And I'll talk a little bit about them, but I don't want to go into too much detail. But I did pick up some books that I had on my TBR for quite some time and just wanted to know if I was going to like them or not. They were ones that I was on the fence about in the first place because I know my reading taste pretty well. But having it be the end of the year, I was like, okay, it's time. I need to get this off of my TBR and get it read and find out if I'm actually going to like it. And with these 4, I did not. First of those would be The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. I had a feeling I was not going to like this series. And the reason for that is it's very character driven. And I knew that going into it. And it turned out it just didn't work for me. And then some of the dialogue was pretty immature. And I didn't really understand where we were going. And that always kind of puts me off to a book. Like, give me some direction. Let me know kind of where we're headed. This book had no direction whatsoever. And so I kept getting lost and bored and was just like, okay, we're done. We're done with this. We're moving on. And then Storm and Fury by Jennifer L. Armentrout. If you guys have been around for any amount of time, you will know that I do like From Blood and Ash. I do like that series. Wasn't a huge fan of the 3rd book. So I wanted to go ahead and try something else from her. This book has a sticking point for me, and you're going to laugh. But the main character's name is Trinity, and I didn't know that. So that was irritating to read. And the reason being, I don't hear my name very often. I do not hear my name very often. And so I found it grating that this person had my name, the main character, her name was Trinity, you know. But it was also a book that I felt wasn't going anywhere. It had this great premise, but then turned into just solely a romance. And if you guys have been watching my videos recently, you probably know I am on the search for a great romance that also has a great fantasy story to go along with it. And this just was not it. It was not it. The same can be said for the next book that I picked up, A Promise of Fire by Amanda Bouchette. Now, I've heard from everyone that this is one of those that has a great romance, but also a great fantasy story. No. Actually, this book pissed me off. It irritated me so much because all the main character talked about was how hot the love interest was, and she couldn't handle it. That was it. That was all she talked about. I am all for pining in a story, but when that is the constant thread of thought for the main character of the story and you're in their head, no, nuh-uh. Hated it. I hated it. Next was His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. So I'm not into cozy fantasy, and I picked this up thinking we were getting Napoleonic War with dragons. All I got in the part that I read was this guy adopting a dragon. I read the first part, like it's broken up in parts. I read the whole first part. That was it. That nothing else happened. This guy adopted a dragon. 50 pages. And that's all that happened. And so I was done. It was cutesy, it was cozy, and I didn't care for it at all. There was one other book that I picked up that I am going to talk about in a later video because it was an SPSFC. So whenever I finish the first 2 books for SPSFC, I'll actually post reviews for them in tandem. I've read 1. I am working on 2 more. So as soon as I finish another one of those, I will post reviews for the 2 that I've read. I did start Emperor's Blades, but I ended up having to set it aside and put it aside for later because my brain was just not wanting to process anything that I was reading at the time. So what I did in December is basically I just picked up 2 romances. So I picked up one of the STEMinist novellas by Ali Hazelwood called Stuck With You. And I have to say, Ali Hazelwood writes really great romance. I really enjoy it. And she writes in a fanfic style, so I also enjoy that as well. And when I say fanfic style, I mean she does use favorite tropes. She does use banter quite often, a lot of things that you would see in fan fiction. And she also makes references and jokes to other popular things. But I really enjoyed this one, and it's a friends to rivals to lovers type of romance. And she always, they're called the STEMinist novels because she always writes about women in STEM. And they're just cute. They're cute. I do have her second novel that I need to read. I don't know when I'm going to get around to it because my romance leaning has been fantasy lately, but we'll see. We'll see. And then the other one that I picked up, speaking of fan fiction, is Olivia Dade's All the Feels. Now, this is the second book in the Spoiler Alert series, and Spoiler Alert is very heavily focused on fan fiction. The author herself is a fan fiction author, and the writer, the main character in the story, is a fan fiction author. And the culture surrounding fan fiction, she nailed it. Olivia Dade, she nailed it. And I really love that about Spoiler Alert. Now, All the Feels I didn't like quite as much. And I will say that part of that is because the main characters, I'm not going to say that they're whiny, but both of them get hyper-focused, hyper-fixated, and that is due to trauma and ADHD, which I have. So I totally get that. I totally understand. But whenever I'm trying to pick up something, I need something to take me out of my personal issues and not give me more. So I did feel like, oh, this is how my brain works. But I also was like, I need something that's not going to put me in this place. But other than that, really enjoyed it. It's a really cute romance. It's very slow burn. It does get pretty spicy towards the end, but the relationship is actually really cute and really well developed. So I really enjoyed that about it. But that is it for me today. Like, subscribe, do all the fun things, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!